Welcome to the deep dive. When something significant happens, like the selection of a new pope, you want to understand what's really going on behind it.
Absolutely. You want the real story, quickly.
And the recent choice of Pope Leo XIV, well, it's definitely sparked a lot of questions.
For sure.
So in this deep dive, we're really zeroing in on why that particular papal name is being called. So intriguing.
And we've got some great insights here. We're drawing from American Bishop Robert Barron's analysis. He was actually there at the Vatican for the election.
Yeah, he shared his thought with Fox News.
Exactly. So our goal today is really to look beyond just the announcement. We want to get to the heart of why Leo XIV is generating all this buzz.
What clues does it give us about the new pope's potential direction?
Yeah, for the Catholic Church and, its role in today's pretty complex world, we want to give you that essential understanding without getting bogged down.
Okay, so papal names. It's not random, is it? There's like a lot riding on the choice.
Oh, definitely not random. Precisely. The choice of a papal name is very often quite deliberate. It's meant to signal something.
Like a connection.
Exactly. A link with admired predecessors, popes whose approach or legacy the new leader wants to somehow echo or highlight. It's like a first hint at their priorities.
Right. And when Pope Leo XIV was announced, I bet a lot of people immediately thought of other names he could have picked.
Bishop Barron actually touched on that, some of the possibilities that, didn't happen.
What were they?
Well, he mentioned if the new pope had chosen Francis II, for example, the immediate thought would be, okay, a direct continuation of Pope Francis.
Makes sense.
Or say John Paul III. That might have signaled a perhaps stronger connection to the more conservative side, often associated with John Paul II.
And John takes a fourth.
That could have been seen as nodding towards a more maybe progressive or even, radically different direction.
Which makes the actual choice, Leo, even more significant, doesn't it?
It really does.
The fact that he didn't pick a name so obviously tied to one of the recent popes, what does that tell us?
Well, it strongly suggests, perhaps, a desire to chart a course that isn't just a simple extension of the last few papacies.
Looking further back.
Exactly. Drawing inspiration from deeper in the Church's history, maybe trying to avoid those immediate and potentially limiting associations from the very recent past.
Okay, so that brings us squarely to Pope Leo XIII, the namesake.
Yes. Pope Leo XIV explicitly chose his name to honor Leo XIII, who reigned way back from 1878 to 1903.
Wow, yeah, that's reaching back quite a bit, over a century.
It is a significant historical jump. And to really get why it matters, you have to understand the world Leo XIII was operating in.
What was going on then?
Well, his papacy was during a time of just massive upheaval. Think about it. The aftermath of the French and American revolutions was still being felt. You had the rise of completely new ideologies like Marxism.
So it's really turbulent time.
Extremely. Long-held ways of organizing society were being fundamentally challenged.
And I gather the Church's first reaction to all this modernity wasn't exactly welcoming.
No, initially there was a lot of resistance, a strong sense of opposition to many of these changes sweeping across Europe and the world.
That changed.
Well, it shifted. As the 19th century progressed, especially under Leo XIII, a different approach started to emerge. The Church began moving towards what Bishop Barron describes as a critical engagement with the modern world.
Critical engagement, meaning?
Meaning not just saying yes or no blindly, not a blanket acceptance, but also not a complete rejection either. It was about a more thoughtful, discerning response to these new realities.
Okay. And a key example of this was his encyclical Rerum Novarum, right? In 1891. That seems really important here.
Absolutely crucial. Rerum Novarum is really a foundational text for modern Catholic social teaching. It's quite fascinating.
F so.
Well, on one hand, as Bishop Barron points out, Leo XIII was very critical of Marxism, socialism, communism. He strongly defended the right to private property and the basic principles of a market economy.
So a clear stance against those systems.
A very clear no to what he saw as the dangers there. But, and this is the key part,
right,
it wasn't just about defending the status quo, because as you mentioned, he also strongly advocated for the rights of workers.
Okay, so it wasn't just pro-market, full stop.
Not at all. In that same document, Rerum Novarum, Leo XIII emphatically supported the right for workers to organize, to form unions.
That seems, well, maybe not contradictory, but definitely a balancing act.
It is. And he also championed this core idea of the universal destination of goods.
What's that?
It's a fundamental Catholic teaching that says the earth and all its resources are ultimately intended for the benefit of all people, not just a few. So it was a strong yes to the dignity and rights of the working person.
And Bishop Barron highlighted something pretty striking from Leo III about wealth, didn't he?
He did. Barron basically paraphrases Leo III, saying something like, look, once you've taken care of your own needs and maintained your proper station in life, the rest of what you have, in a very real sense, actually belongs to the poor.
Wow. Belongs to the poor. That is strong.
Yeah, Barron calls it almost revolutionary, especially coming from a pope who was also strongly defending private property rights.
It really shows that balance, that tension you mentioned.
Exactly. Rerum Novarum kind of established that balance and really set the direction for how the church would engage with social justice issues for, well, generations to come.
So the takeaway for understanding Pope Leo IV's name choice is this idea of holding firm principles, but also actively engaging with modern problems, not just rejecting or accepting.
That seems to be the legacy the name evokes. Yes, that tension. Upholding tradition while seeking real solutions, critically engaging, not just reacting.
Okay, so let's bring this back fully to Pope Leo IV, choosing this name now, today. Bishop Barron sees this as a clear signal, right?
Right, a signal that the new pope intends to adopt a similar approach, that same kind of critical engagement with the modern world.
But what does critical engagement actually look like, in practice in our world?
Well, it suggests approaching today's big issues, political, social, technological, with both a grounding in core principles, traditional teachings, but also a genuine willingness to understand and respond thoughtfully to what's new.
So not just digging in heels or jumping on bandwagons.
Precisely. Bishop Barron believes that by picking the name Leo, the new pope is signaling he wants to navigate the divides we see everywhere now in politics, in society, with that kind of nuanced perspective, one that doesn't just slot easily into the usual boxes.
Yeah, because Barron made that point, didn't he? That figures like Leo III and maybe now Leo XIV, they don't really fit neatly into our standard left versus right or, Democrat-Republican category.
Exactly. Their whole framework for thinking about these things comes from Catholic social teaching, which often cuts across those typical partisan lines. It might affirm something usually seen as right and something else seen as left in the very same breath. So Barron suggests Pope Leo IV could be a really interesting player, as he put it, on the world stage today, offering perspectives that might surprise people who are used to thinking only in those fixed political terms.
Does that potentially mean leaning towards some of Leo XIII's more, say, conservative views on certain things, even while doing this critical engagement?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Leo III certainly held traditional views on many matters. How Pope Leo IV interprets and applies that critical engagement legacy in the 21st century. That's what everyone will be watching. It'll be fascinating to see how that balance works out.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this deep dive into the name Leo XIV, using Bishop Barron's analysis as a guide, it really shows it's much more than just, a nod to history.
Much more. It strongly suggests a deliberate choice, an intention by the new pope.
An intention to engage with all the complexities of our modern world, but in a way that's both discerning, critical, and hopefully constructive.
Right, echoing how Leo III tried to navigate his own era of huge societal change.
Bishop Barron calling the name very intriguing. That really captures it, doesn't it, given the potential for navigating today's divides differently?
I think so. For anyone trying to make sense of today's world, the key takeaway from this historical link is the potential for a leader who aims to hold on to core values while still actively and thoughtfully dealing with the realities we face now.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought to chew on. How might this historical model of critical engagement actually play out today?
Yeah, what specific modern challenges might Pope Leo IV tackle with this kind of nuanced approach?
Thinking about everything from AI and tech ethics to economic inequality, climate change, social justice movements.
Exactly. How does that 19th century approach translate?
It will definitely be something to watch. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.